Rhodes. Funny you mentioned that name because MJF, as we all know, was bosom buddies with Cody Rhodes, and now Cody is in a new environment. MJF is still mentioning him, and it's been out there that MJF not happy with his current contract situation, and he's been bandying about the idea of when his deal is up in 2024. And we've talked about this, it's been several weeks ago now. Is he still working on the same contract that he signed when he was, the guy on MLW television? Because if I've seen Vince McMahon tear up people's deals when unexpected shit happened, and I would hesitate to think that Tony Khan hadn't been smart enough to do that and keep. Let's face it. Who were the four pillars supposed to be that they called them?
MJF, Sammy, was it Darby and Jungle Boy?
Okay, Sammy Guevara, if he's still walking in 2 years, the bloom's already coming off that rose. Jungle Boy, give me a fucking break. And, Darby is not going to be walking in 2 years. MJF is, and they've cooled Darby off already. So MJF in 2 years is going to be AEW's homegrown superstar. And it might be a whole lot more expensive for Tony to fucking keep him from walking then than it might be for him to make him happy now.
I think it's going to be expensive either way. Again, you can't just rip up a contract unless the other party says, I'm okay with you ripping it up and giving me something new.
Yeah, I'd say about $4 million.
Unless he thinks he can get more millions from Vince in a few years, and that's where Tony could step it up and say, look, this is ridiculous. You are one of our biggest stars. You're one of the few people that we could say moves numbers. People care about your segments. I like them. They're really good. We want to give you a new deal. We know you can get a lot of money somewhere else. We want to give you more money than they ever would. Tony could do that if he really wanted to. And this may be the guy to do it to. And you brought up a point earlier, and I've been thinking about it since the last time we talked about it, because this isn't the first time this story's gotten out there. And I do hope we don't have to go through 2 years of MJF's thinking about leaving, MJF's happy, MJF's thinking about leaving. Because it's 2 years, ladies and gentlemen. It's a long time. But if MJF is still signed or still has the original contract he went to AEW under, where he was a young guy coming off MLW, who's notorious for their contracts not necessarily being favorable to wrestlers, gets his first major deal with AEW. If he's still signed to that contract, and in the past few years, main evented, had critically acclaimed matches and programs. The ratings move up for him. He's the best promo. He has more crossover capabilities than most wrestlers, even though he hasn't really been utilized in that way. If he's still making less than a Scorpio Sky, a Frankie Kazarian. Think of some of the people they've been featuring lately in the TNT title program.
Now here's the thing also, because you've seen this circulated on the internet. People have said, and I don't know if this is legitimate, but it sounds, I don't know about the amounts, but the names, except for one, sound legitimate, that supposedly the highest paid people in AEW are your Moxley, your Punk, your Danielson, your whatever. You see figures like 2 million or 3 million bandied around, but this may have been before the last acquisition or two, but it was circulated that one of the 5 highest paid guys in AEW was Pac at like 7 figures. That somehow anybody was insane enough to think that Pac was worth 7 figures a year, and he's never even on the program. And in COVID, yes, he was over in England, whatever the fuck, but I mean, it's Pac. He has some good points, but he can't have a goddamn match on his own to save his life because he's always doing something goofy. But the point is, when I was in MLW doing the commentary in 2019, when this was coming about, and at that time it had been announced, I couldn't explain to anybody that I'd had prior knowledge of it because of that pesky NDA, but all the guys were talking that were being signed at that point, the independent guys, the outlaw guys, the pockets of the world, they were talking about that this guy was signing independent guys from these companies for 5 times or more the money that they'd ever been paid by anybody in their life. And that would have been true for all of those guys then, and it still would be a minute fraction of what they're paying guys like Jericho and Moxley and Danielson and Punk and etc. But there is also some of those cases where there are guys that just because they had the right friends to put in the word for them or been some kind of name in the fantasy land that Tony lives in, the independent wrestling circuit, they're getting close to 7 figures to do absolutely jack all of shit, but wrestling YouTube matches because they're not worth a shit. And he was, blinded by the shiny new toys.
Hey, let me ask you about these guys that have come in the last year of WWE TV. If MJF is still under that first deal he signed in AEW, does that mean Malachi Black got paid more money than him to come in because he hasn't been worth it?
Well, certainly.
Andrade El Idolo?
Yes.
Mark Henry?
Yes.
Christian Cage?
Yes.
MJF is worth more money than all of those people combined.
Yes.
So this is why Tony Khan should rip up his contract and give him something new. But it can't be for just like a...
Wait a minute. Now that you've talked me into this, fuck it. If I was MJF, I'd say, fuck you, Tony. I'll see you in 2 years. Don't bother tearing up anything now.
That's what I'm saying.
Like it is.
That's what I'm saying. He knows there's a pot of gold waiting for him over there. Tony Khan could give him a whole bunch of shit. And he could even give him enough so they wouldn't worry about 2 years from now. We could end it right now. But it would be a lot, and he's probably not going to do that. But that's the issue. If MJF... When did he sign? 2019. If MJF was working 5 years under that original deal and making that original money, and all of these other guys are either already there or coming in and making more money, if I was him, I would be livid. If I was him, I would probably have a representative talk to Tony Khan and say, this isn't going to fly. He's not making shit compared to these people. If that's the situation.
Nash and Hall got the favored nations clause out of Bischoff because he was in the same position 30 years ago or whatever Tony Khan is now. He was in over his head, whistling Stranger in Paradise and using somebody, well, in this case, Tony's using his dad's money. Bischoff was using a non-relative's money to sign all these fucking big name stars that Vince had already made. So when Nash and Hall signed, if you pay anybody more than us, we get a raise too.
MJF's more valuable to the company than Moxley. I mean, really think about it.
You don't even have to hate Moxley's entire presence and presentation as bad as I do to see that and agree with it, because it's obvious.
So I think there's the problem, because part of the story that got out, and I don't know how these stories keep leaking, someone's leaking them for some reason, that Tony and MJF are still not talking. So maybe not talking isn't the right term. They're not where their relationship was before the previous blow up where he talked about this on another podcast, MJF. Like I said before, MJF deserves as much money as anyone in that company other than CM Punk.
You know what would have solved all of this? Fuck guaranteed contracts. I actually said that. I knew for the first time I got one. I said, well, this ain't good. Because it used to be the people who drew the money and the people that sold the tickets made the money. Then the guaranteed contracts came in, and now you're guaranteed to make X dollars, whether you drop dead, turn blue, show up, or don't. So where's the goddamn incentive? And right now, the highest paid guys in the company, if it were by the territory model where you paid the people in the main events, you paid the people that drew the money, the highest paid guys in the company would be CM Punk and MJF, along with another one or two of them, because they're in everything good and everything hot and everything that's selling.
But again, I can understand where MJF would potentially be coming from, and I can understand where Tony Khan would be coming from. I have you to this contract. I have all these other headaches. Please don't be another one. I can understand what Tony Khan would come from. But we can't go through this for 2 fucking years.
But again, in the wrestling business of days gone by, this would have been an easy fix. Because the booker / promoter would have gone to the top star that was pissed off and threatening to fucking jump ship. Say, all right, what's going to make you happy? Okay, nobody knows about this. Here's what we're going to do. You don't know, I don't know. Your check will change. Nothing's happened. Act naturally, say nothing. Nobody would ever hear about it. They wouldn't know what MJF was getting paid because he wouldn't say, and the promoter wouldn't say. But now nobody can shut the fuck up. And if anybody asked the promoter, hey, did you give MJF a raise? He would look straight in their face, just like Paul Heyman would, and say, of course not. And lie like a rug. And who's going to be able to prove different? Nobody. That's why in the old days, people didn't know what they're... Every once in a while, somebody would hear what their opponent got on a big territory show as a payoff, and if it wasn't the same thing they got, then somebody would get mad and quit or punch somebody in the face. That's why you kept the boys in the dark. Even the other boys kept the other boys in the dark. Every once in a while, somebody liked to brag. JYD had the $12,000 week in Mid-South the week of the Superdome show against Michael Hayes. We heard about that for fucking years afterwards. And especially when we main evented the Superdome and it was a tag team with a manager instead of a single match, and we didn't have a $12,000 week, then we were pissed.
Do you agree, though, with what I said earlier? Not to use a word that is hated in the world of Cornette, but it's going to become tiresome pretty quickly if they keep doing this for the next 2 years.
Yeah, no, it can't go 2 years, or then people are going to go, you know what? We don't really care anymore. We're tired of it. And then if MJF doesn't have the sentiment of the people on his side, it would be harder. Because right now he's the put upon fucking star that's, creating great television and apparently not getting compensated for it, while all these other jack-offs that had EVPs that were friends is, oh, he's great. Well, they're getting $750,000 to fucking diddle around on YouTube.
Yeah, and if you're not going to rip up the contract and give him something new, let him do what Mike Ovitz did with Letterman. You're not going to go out there and solicit offers, but let other people pitch them. Let's see what the WWE has to say, even though we're a couple of years away. If Tony has nothing to worry about and has the money to spend and is willing to spend it, let's get this over with now so we don't have 2 years of this.
No sense dragging our feet.